So thank you for coming to see us, spend your day with us today at Scandia. I'm not sure how many of you saw the seminar or have seen ones my other colleagues have done for the planning and the plot finding, but this one is basically about the second half of the process. So let's have a little look here. Hopefully you know, but we're not trying to sell you a timeshare to Portabanus. We are going to talk about building regs, the build costs, and then the build routes that you have the options to go down. So as I say, with building regulations, you really only start the building regs process once you have got the planning process sorted. Building regs is associated with the construction and the fabrication of the structure, versus planning, which is all to do with how big it is, how it fits into the local area. So there's no point doing building regs until you've got a firm approval from the planning side of things. Build costs are obviously varied by a number of different factors, one of which is the build route, and as I say, we'll come on to that as we go on. I'm sure you'll have a few questions. If you wouldn't mind jotting them down as we go on, because I may well address them as we go through the project, as we go through the presentation, and we can obviously answer them at the end, if that's okay. So, a little bit about us before we start. Scandia is a privately owned company, always has been. We've only ever had two owners in our existence. I was just saying to you earlier on. The lady who first set us up sort of 46 years ago basically imported kits directly from Sweden. So we have been, say, Scandia for at least the last 45 years, always have been. We've moved from being a very sort of stock 6 bungalows, 6 chalets company to a completely bespoke setup. We're one of a few companies that actually has our own factory facility, so we don't ship things out to a third party. Our factory is based 45 minutes from here in Horsham, and we manufacture everything ourselves. So that allows us complete control of the process, and when things obviously do leave the factory to your site. We're not developers, so we are focused purely on you guys as self-builders. So we're set up here to guide you through, say, the planning, design process, and take you through to completion on site. So getting on to building regulations, you've got really two parts of building regs. Unlike planning where they want everything up front, building regs is more of a drip feed process. So you have the plans check side of things, and then you have the actual on-site site inspection side of things. So the plans check is very similar to planning. It is drawings, it is forms, it is send it off and wait for someone to come back to you. With this setup, you have a scenario of going down the conventional sort of local authority route, or you can use private inspectors, and you have that choice completely at the stage of making the decision on who does building regulations. We tend to do a majority through our local authority, so which is Tandridge, and because building regulations is the same wherever you are in the UK, let me phrase that, wherever you are in England, it's slightly different in Wales and Scotland, but whereas planning is specific to maybe Sussex or to Wilden within Sussex, building regulations is the same whether you're in Dover or Derby, so it makes no difference at all. That's how we can do the plans check through our local authority, who have got all our signed off details. It makes the queries that come back a lot less and the whole process a lot quicker. Once they've done the plans check, they then send it to your local authority wherever you may be building, and that individual from that area where you're building comes to site and does the site inspections. When you use an approved sort of private company, it's exactly the same process, albeit, say, you are just sidelining the local authority and you've got the private inspectors coming to site and dealing with you, or indeed us, to submit the drawings and the plans check. So, very much like planning, there is a lot of information that gets sent off as part of that plans check. And as I say, what you'll find is that it is the same or similar drawings that have been used for planning that then get used for building regs, albeit they now have a great deal more detail on them. So you've got your elevations and you've got your floor plans. So with regards to planning, they're looking at how it sits on the site, how it relates to neighbours. Building regs don't care about that. Building regs is about how it's going to be built. So the floor plans have a heightened level of notes on them. They've got things like drainage layouts on them. They've got all the specific wall dimensions shown on them, wall thicknesses, fabrication details. So that's what building regs is all about. We always have to send through sections, not only through the property, but also ones that are actually through the site as well. Now with something like the property, you have to adhere, for example, and make sure that a staircase, you've always got 2 metres of clear head height on a staircase. Now, you can't prove that on a plan, so you have to show a section that details that. With the site sections, you need to stipulate the finished floor level. You might have to show invert levels for drainage to show how the site's actually going to be set up. This next drawing here is our drawing number 10. This is our basic specification drawing. Now this highlights a wealth of information associated with the actual fabrication of our timber frame structure. This drawing details a vast amount of notes associated with the external cladding, but also full details associated with all the insulation that we use, wall thicknesses, let's say through the walls, through the floors, through the ceiling. A lot of the details and a lot of the questions that we find come back from site can actually be addressed by just looking at this drawing. So that's quite an important one that we actually put together specifically for your own project and goes off as part of that plans check. You've always got a form, I'm afraid, but we fill it in for you, so there's nothing for you to worry about on that front. Say your name, address, details, our details go on there as the contact, and if you've got a builder instructed, their details will go on that as well. This one again is quite important from the building regs perspective, and indeed the build as a whole. This is your energy performance certificate. Now, if any of you have bought a house in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, or a TV or a fridge for that matter, you'll have seen this sort of A to G graph on it. And that is giving you the energy performance certificate of said item. In this scenario, said item is a house, and there's a lot of things that go into creating that rating. Now, the energy performance certificate is done at the beginning and also at the end of the build. So at the beginning, we have to do what's called a predicted energy assessment. Now, we might know, for example, you're going to use, you might going to use a gas boiler, but you might not know the specific model or make of the gas boiler. You might know you're going to use solar panels, but you might not know that you're going to use 4 kilowatts of solar panels. So at the outset, we have to make certain assumptions which creates this predicted assessment. At the end, once the build has been completed, you'll have all that information. So the information is then fed back to that consultant who produces the actual final, the final as-built certificate. Now, I mention that because it's quite important, very important I should say, to track any changes you make during the build process. I've had a client, unfortunately, a couple of years back, who decided without telling us that they weren't going to use solar PV on their roof. But that then had a quite significant impact on their energy performance certificate at the end, and actually meant that the building failed. So they had to then put the solar panels on that they were intending to do so. So it's all very well changing specification, changing certain details, but this consultant who does this energy performance certificate is local to us, just 10 minutes down the road. If you're unsure or you think you might make changes, just phone us, give us a call, we can run the calculations through them and check that any tweaks or changes you might make will actually be okay and that your building does obviously pass at the end of it. The next one, now required by all local authorities and certainly all warranty providers, which we'll come on to in a minute, is a soil and indeed porosity test. So this is an analysis of the soil on your site to determine what the foundation requirements need to be, whether standard foundations are acceptable, and indeed the porosity of the soil to check on drainage requirements. In line with that, we then have the sort of proposed site plan. So again, this would have been a drawing that we would have created for you at planning stage, but now gets a heightened level of detail added to it for building regulations. We need to show things like drainage on there. We need to show things such as parking and the ability to turn fire appliances around and the such like. So say it's the similar drawings from planning, but just carried through to building reg standards. Another drawing that our in-house guys here create for you is the foundation design. So this runs in line with your soil test that you've had done. The soil test is about how deep the foundations go. This drawing is about the perimeter, basically, the footprint. So naturally, we've done the timber frame design for planning and building regs. We then create this drawing which specifies the exact dimensions associated with the requirements on site for your new property. This is just one of 161 pages of structural calculations for this particular design, and structural calculations, as you might expect, are an important part of the building regs process. We have our own engineers, not in-house, but a dedicated company that we use for all our engineering, and they have to provide the structural calcs for every project that we do, and again, that's an integral part of the building regs requirements. Now, once that's all gone in, you are looking then for a conditional approval. So that magic bit of paper that says, thank you for everything you've submitted, and yes, it is approved to building reg standards. What you then have also with this conditional approval, as the name suggests, is elements which are conditioned for later approval on site. And this is the main reason that building regs is a two-phase process. There are some things which you can do on paper, and you can say, look, we're going to build it like this. And there are things which then need to be checked and proven on site. And that's when you get to the actual inspection dates and inspection site visits which occur. So the first one you have is when you're poised, ready, excited, not covered in mud, you've got your Harris fencing up, your diggers, your guys are ready to start. You give building control a call and you say, look, I'm going to start on Monday. These guys work on a very quick turnaround, so you can make a call and they'll normally be out in 1 to 2 days. If you say I'm starting tomorrow, that's the nature of their business. So you're not having to book it in a week in advance or anything like that. They will come to site, and the first inspection they do is just literally to assess the site. If they've got any issues, for example, like we said about how is a fire appliance going to get down this lane, that's when they're going to flag that straight away. You'd hope that that would have been flagged on the plans check, but that's why they do a commencement one as well. The next one is one of the most important, so foundations on site. As we've said, you've got your soil tests. That does really give you a bit of a stick to bat away any annoying building control officers to say, well, you need to go 2 metres deep. And if you've got a report that says I've got to go 1.5 metres deep, that gives you some sort of justification to have that conversation. But the foundations will be dug, and the building control inspectors will always want to see the bottom of those trenches. They're looking at the soil substrate, they're looking to make sure there's no massive tree roots poking through. It's at this stage where you can find that you're having to sort of go deeper or go wider and change or improve your foundation requirements at the mercy, say, of the building control inspector. The next visit sort of can be of 1 or 2 stages. They will normally, or can come out, should I say, at the stage where you pour concrete, because they want to make sure that's going in correctly. But 9 times out of 10, they'll come out at this stage here. So what you see in the image is basically a completed oversight ready to take the timber frame structure. Your foundations are in, your beam and block floor has been laid, which creates the flat base, and then you've got this perimeter block which goes around, say, the outside and underneath of all structural walls. It's at that stage here when our shell erection team turn up that they would fit the damp-proof course on the top of those blocks, and indeed then the timber frame goes on top of that. So this is our part. Everything that's happened before this stage here is done by ground workers on site. This part is done by the Scandia shell erection teams. To say those materials will come direct from our factory, be erected by our shell erection teams. As a general rule of thumb, you've got about a week per 1,000 square foot for the shell erection process. So something like the Adelia is 2,800 square feet. It's about 3 weeks to get it to that stage there, and then normally a week additionally allowed for the window fit. At this stage, again, it's another key inspection time for the building control guys to come to site. They want to check over what we've done, basically, make sure it's up to scratch. In particular, looking at the roof framework, fixings, detailings, to make sure that what we've erected tallies with the structural design and the structural calculations that have been produced. I mentioned drainage earlier on. We've got it shown on a plan, but actually if you just lay the drainage and you've got the falls all wrong, you're in a world of trouble. So they want to check that you put the manholes in the required positions. They want to check that it's going to the right place, that the soakaway has been sized correctly. All the things that say that you can only check physically on site once they've been done. The next one is that first fix stage. So what you have here is an image of the Scandia Hughes timber frame with all the first fix materials complete. So the insulation's installed. You've got cabling here being run for electrics, and also plumbing would have been installed at this stage as well. Basically anything before the fitting of sort of plasterboard is deemed as first fix, as a general sort of easy thing to remember. And really after this stage, they're not interested till it's all done, which is nice. They don't care how you fit your kitchen. They're not really bothered about how the flooring goes down, as long as your threshold details are correct. But these are the things that they're checking at the completion stage. And those sort of details associated with, let's say, thresholds are all important factors that your builders, your trades will be aware of. So the completion is, as the name suggests, when the property is completely finished and you can essentially move in. You'll get a completion certificate as part of the building regulations process, and that certificate is very important for your VAT reclaim. Now, many of you may know that new build is VAT exempt, but there will be elements of VAT that you'll probably pick up along the way. For example, if you go down to, I don't know, let's say B&Q to buy your taps and your sink for your downstairs toilet, the Saturday boy working there is not going to know if you're building your own house or if you're just refitting your bathroom. So he's going to sell you those products. He's going to sell you them with VAT on the top. You just keep that receipt. You get a box file, VAT receipts, and you pop everything in that box file. You then have 90 days from the date of your completion certificate to submit your full VAT reclaim. And say, whilst it's not huge sums of money, you'll tend to find that it can be 10, 15, 20,000 pounds, depending on obviously the size and the value of your overall project. So some clients may find that actually, if budget's running tight towards the end, they'll use that VAT reclaim money to finish off their landscaping or such like. Because it is sometimes a fair chunk of money that does come back. So what you've got here, and I touched on it earlier on, is sort of the structural warranty scenario. And many people say, well, do I actually need one of these things? What's it all about? The bottom line is, if you're borrowing money to build the property, then you will need a structural warranty. The structural warranty is safeguarding the bank's, the building society's money. That's what it is. It's an insurance policy. You'll also need it should you come to sell your property within 10 years and the person buying your property is taking out a mortgage. It's the same scenario. That bank's lending that person the money to buy your house and they want to know that it's got a 10-year structural warranty to it. So we would always advise our clients that, look, it's another £2,000, £3,000, £4,000, but it is a worthwhile thing to take out just to safeguard your situation. No one knows what may happen in 10 years. You may have no intention of selling the property at all, but no one knows really what may come around the corner. You've got a number of names on that slide there. Probably the most well-known is the NHBC. And whilst that is, those are the original guys, and their standards are still what we all work and adhere to today. The NHBC has sort of moved out of the structural warranty market for us self-builders, basically. It's more now geared towards your sort of volume house builders that are doing 200 plus houses on site. So what we tend to find is that Build Zone is a very popular name for a lot of our clients. So they all offer essentially the same thing, a structural 10-year warranty against defects of the structure. It's an insurance policy, it's a financial product, so you have to choose which one you deem fit. We always supply, say, our structural calculations and our engineer certificate, and that will form the cornerstone of any one of these structural warranties. But say, the choice of who you use is completely up to you. So then we come on to the build cost, which I know is a key consideration for many people, whatever stage they're at really with their project. Excuse me. Now you've got a number of factors which impact cost. So the site, design, specification and build route. And now what you'll find is that if you've got a plot already, you're already committed. So you'll have done certain searches when you bought your plot. You'll have considered certain things with regards to routes to motorways and family and friends. You may have considered obviously, what are my soil conditions like? You won't have because no one does. But these are things you should do with the hindsight that hopefully today's seminar will give you. There are a great number of factors associated with your site that can obviously influence the overall cost. So the geographical location itself is a key one. If you're building in central London, it's going to cost you more money than if you're building where we are here. Labour rates, for example. A carpenter around this area will look to earn £180, £190 a day. A carpenter inside London's not getting out of bed for less than 250 quid a day. So the actual labour rates associated with the geographical location. And indeed, if you've chosen a remote location, if you've got somewhere where literally there is one builder for 50 miles, obviously he's going to charge whatever he likes because he's the only guy there. The remote location also has aspects associated with things like services. So if you've got a very remote plot and you've got to bring water to it, you're going to have to obviously foot the bill to do just that. We mentioned soil conditions already, but it is one of those factors that is normally obviously dictated by your site. The soil conditions and trees. If you've got high water dependency trees and poor soil conditions, naturally you could then be into an engineered solution such as piling. And the piling cost could be significant over and above a standard foundation cost. Site restrictions, and what we mean by that is things like access. We've said earlier on about maybe fire appliance access, but if you can't get sort of large wagons to site, you're going to have to use smaller vehicles or vans and double, triple handle products to get them off of large lorries onto small lorries. You're just having more deliveries. It's going to cost more money to get those lorries to site. And the last one there is the topography of the site, the levels on the site. If you've got a nice flat site, easy to work with, lots of space, nice and simple. If you've got something where you've got to crane everything down from a level, onto a site. You might then also be in for things like retaining walls or potentially sort of split level properties, which whilst would add interest to the design, obviously are going to add cost to the overall project. So say if you already have your site, these are things that obviously you will now hopefully be able to look into in a bit more detail. If you haven't, these are certainly things to consider. And as I say, it's just taking that step back and almost putting a common sense approach to it. Can I get a bin lorry to the site? You know, do the guys pick up the wheelie bins? Yes. Right, then that's pretty much going to be okay for fire appliances, pretty much going to be okay for a majority of lorries that have to get there. If not, you just need to sort of take a step back and consider whether it's the right site for you. The next one is the design itself. Now, Scandia, as I'm sure you're aware, offers a complete sort of design service. But we have a lot of clients who come to us maybe with plans they've already had drawn up. And in that scenario, we are obviously looking to appraise that design and we will cost it accordingly. So we are by default self-builders. That doesn't necessarily mean you're doing everything yourself. It means you're building your own house. And there are 4 sort of key routes that people tend to go down, albeit there are 2 more popular ones. So we have a few brave souls, shall we say, who take on a true self-build. And this, as the name suggests, is you as individuals doing the work yourself. This is not, oh, I'll get an electrician in, I'll get a plumber in. This is you doing the work. So if you've got a good partner and a good core of friends, this is you. It's not for the faint-hearted. You might not be so good friends at the end of it, come to say. But the next one, and the next 2 really, project management and what we call the main contractor are the most popular routes for clients. So project management is where you're not physically doing the building work. You're bringing in the professional trades as individuals. So you're bringing in the ground worker, you're bringing in the roofing contractor, you're bringing in the carpenter, and you're managing the day-to-day running of the site. Your responsibility falls with security of the site. If your bricklayer is running out of sand, he's coming to you to get more sand. So you're there, say, to keep the site ticking over. Now, a lot of our clients do enter into the idea of this and like the idea of it, and as I say, it is becoming more and more popular as a way of sort of reducing their outgoings. But I would advise you to think carefully about it. It's pretty much a full-time job, so it's very difficult, nigh impossible to do this alongside running a standard 9 to 5 and keeping the family going at the same time. Main contractor is the predominant route which many of our customers take. So this gives you the safeguard of a specification of works that normally Scandia has put together. This gives you the safeguard of a contract with a normally known and trusted builder based on a fixed cost and a fixed time for the build. Now the only caveat to the fixed cost is groundworks. As we said earlier on, when you dig that trench, if the building control officer wants deeper foundations, you have to really adhere to that. However, in the specification we've put together, there will be a quantifiable amount for the cubic meterage of that extra foundation. So again, it's all quantified within that specification. We've got all the drawings, we've done them all for you for building regulations. We go through the specification with you to make sure everything that you want is covered off. As I said, normally send that out to 3 contractors to get a range of costs. We have contractors we know and trust, and I've dealt with a number of people recently who know of a very good contractor locally to them. They want them to be included in the tender process. That's absolutely fine. Good builders are good builders. They don't have to work with Scandia who's before. By default, bad builders are bad builders, and we want to try and obviously avoid them wherever we can. So if we're looking for contractors to work with in an area where we don't have known and trusted ones, we will go through that sort of vetting process for you to see past examples of their work, to obviously meet with them, discuss the requirements that you have on site. And the last one, which is an area that Scandia has moved into probably the last couple of years or so, is a full turnkey solution. So with the main contractor route, you have a contract with Scandia for our supply of items, and you have a contract with the builder, or the main contractor, for their scope of works. With a turnkey solution, you have one contract with Scandia who's to do the whole thing. And as such, that puts a premium on that cost because we're taking full responsibility for the complete build. Now we can offer this service to clients pretty much within an hour's radius of this office or indeed our factory. We do probably 5 or 6 turnkey builds a year, and we have more clients that want turnkey than we can actually service for, unfortunately, because everyone wants it. But unfortunately, say there is only a certain number of us who can obviously cover the requirements of this. Now, in your goodie bags, you will have this very helpful document. I say it's 2-sided.
we've got one side here on the screen, and this really highlights the key difference in your involvement in the project with regards to the overall project costs. So we've highlighted the two properties that we have here, the Adelia and indeed this property, the Oakley House. And if we sort of forego the full self-build but just focus more on the project management, you can see that something like the Adelia can be constructed for around the 450 mark. If you then opt for a more sort of, say, fully managed main contractor route, you're adding essentially just over £100,000 to that build cost. Now that's the same house, but obviously it's for the overheads that main contractor is putting in, the profits that he is taking, and the difference between you managing it and having the peace of mind of a fully managed solution. So that gives you, say, hopefully a great deal of scope with regards to costings. And I say that leaflet is very helpful with regards to the information that's on the back as well, because it tells you exactly what is allowed for within those costs, and most importantly, what's not. And what's not is normally anything outside of the four walls, so landscaping, your service connections, and things like we touched on already, things like renewables and specialist items. It's your house, you can have whatever you wish. Like I said, we're here to try and guide you through the process from the building ready stage with an eye firmly on budget, so that when you get there, you can actually afford to build it. So that brings us to the end of this little chat.